Hello everyone, and welcome to our series that explores every single tool in the myCADtools suite. myCADtools offers over 30 tools that are supplementary to SolidWorks. One of those tools is the CurveData tool. Now, we all know that SolidWorks allows you to create 3D curves from a text file in XYZ coordinates, but the CurveData tool gives you a host of other powerful options that really give you an amazing amount of control over the curves that you want to create using those XYZ coordinates or a polar set of coordinates. So what the CurveData tool does is it allows you to create 2D or 3D curves for parts and assemblies directly from one or more files containing point coordinates. Now, this tool can either use plain text formatted documents or an Excel file with those coordinates. As I mentioned before, we get to work with Cartesian or polar coordinate systems, and we can even manage multiple curves at once. This is accomplished by using a separator, and I'll show you how to do that, but that means that several curves can fit inside of one file. And then we can even use several curve files on top of that. And then we have the option to create all of these points, 2D and 3D sketches, and 3D curves. So let's take a look at how the CurveData tool works. Alright, so we access the CurveData tool just by going up to our myCADtools toolbar and selecting the CurveData icon. That brings up the tool here, and what we see is a Files to Process under Files to Generate. So right in this field is where our files with those coordinates will go. However, let's take a look at those specific files that we'll be working from. As I mentioned before, we're going to be using plain text and Excel files. So here we have a folder. I have two files, CurveData. One is a text document and the other is an Excel file. Let's take a look at this text document and see what our formatting has to look like. So basically we have three columns. It doesn't really look like that because there is no formatting in this text document. However, if you see, we have a 0, semicolon, 0, semicolon 0. So we have an X coordinate, a Y coordinate, and a Z coordinate. And if you're using polar coordinates, the first column will be your R, the second column will be theta, and the final column will be Z. So we have all of these coordinates, and each one of these coordinates is a point. And the CurveData tool will connect these points with either lines or splines based on the commands that we select a little further down the line. However, let's take a look down. You can see that there are no spaces until we get here. And by having this space right here, that means it will have two separate curves in this one singular document. There are no other spaces, so we just have this one space, two separate curves, and they can both be generated at the same time. Now let's take a look at our Excel format. It's pretty similar. However, being an Excel spreadsheet, we do have cells to worry about, and you can see column A here. This is going to be our X, B is going to be our Y, and C will be the Z coordinate. Now, the beauty of the Excel file is that these coordinates are already separated into individual cells. In order for the CurveData tool to recognize these as coordinates on a text document, we do need to have these separators, and the semicolon is what we call the separator. You can change this to be a different character, and I'll show you how to do this, but be aware that in a text document, in order for these coordinates to be read as coordinates, they need to be separated by a specific character, and it's probably best just to leave it as a semicolon. But the good news with Excel is that we don't need any of the separators. The cells do the job for us. But the rule is the same. If you want two separate curves in one file, just go ahead and put a space with a blank row, and that will separate these two sets of data into two separate curves. And again, let's just cruise down to make sure we don't have anything else that's out of the ordinary. Yep, there we go. So now let's actually go into the tool and take a look at how we can utilize these files to generate a curve. So the first thing we need to do is add a file. So let's go ahead and grab that CurveData Excel sheet, and now it's ready to be turned into curves. Now we have curve type options. We can select a 3D curve, we can select a 3D sketch, 2D sketch, points, or all of the above. By selecting all of the above, you're basically telling SolidWorks to create the points, and then create a 2D sketch, and then create a 3D sketch, and then create a 3D curve. So they're all separate features. I'm going to leave all of these selected here for now and move over to the right. We have some 2D sketch options and 3D sketch options. In the 2D sketch options, we can have those points connected by either lines or splines. I'm going to leave it as splines. And we can select a plane. I'm going to go ahead and select the front plane. And we also have lines and splines to select from for the 3D geometry, and we can select a coordinate system if we have one. So before I click apply, let's just go and check out the options tab. The first option that you see here is the separator of text files. Remember, we mentioned we needed a separator. Right now it's set to semicolon, but you can also set it to colon, comma, period, or /. You'll want to be sure that you know which coordinate system you're using. Right now, we're just using straight up XYZ Cartesian. However, if you are using a polar coordinate system, then you should be aware that that's there. We can also change the units by degrees or radians. And speaking of units, we can change that from millimeters to millimeters, centimeters, or inches. Just go ahead and leave it as millimeters. We can create a plane to shift with the value of z, and you can bump that tolerance up or down as necessary. And we can remove multiple points. For instance, if we have multiple coordinates on that file, then we can remove multiples by selecting all or only successive, which means multiples that occur one right after the other. We can remove multiples only at the ends, all or none, and we can even bump up the tolerance on this if we need to as well. So you're given a lot of control when creating these curves. So let's go back to Files to Generate and just click Apply, and then SolidWorks will crank through this data and hopefully generate a curve. Finish processing, I'll click OK. And here we go. We have two identical spiral curves based on the data that we had in that Excel spreadsheet. And over in our Feature Manager design tree, you can see we have curve 1 and we have curve 2. So curve 1 will be the top set of data, curve 2 will be the bottom set of data. We also have that 3D Sketch 1 and 3D Sketch 2 associated with the top and the bottom. Same with the 2D sketch and the points that are in these 3D sketches here. Well, let's take a look. Let's go ahead and make a 3D sketch and just grab a line and connect these 2 points. And let's do the same here. So now I've basically closed that profile, and now what we can do is go ahead and create a loft using these 2 sketches. And that'll create a surface based on those 2 sketches. Now all we have to do is thicken that up. So let's grab our thicken tool, maybe thicken it by 4 inches. And now that surface is a solid. So that's one way to utilize that data. Of course, there are infinite possibilities. This is SolidWorks that we're talking about. However, that's the basic functionality of the CurveData tool. Like I said, it's really powerful, and it gives you plenty of options when dealing with data in that Excel spreadsheet or the text document. So thanks for watching. I hope you get to use the CurveData tool in your own modeling. But if you do have any questions, please feel free to email SolidWorks support at mlc-cad.com, and we'll see you next time.